Hey guys, tonight we drift into the middle of the Pacific Ocean. No phone, no map, and definitely no backup plan. Just endless water stitched with stars above and heaving swells below. You're in a carved wooden canoe barely thicker than your thigh, with a few coconuts, a mate who snores loudly, and a vague idea that the next island is that way. You squint into the horizon. There's nothing but blue and that one ominous bird who keeps circling like he knows something you don't. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and the local time down in the comments. I love seeing how far this sleepy little canoe of ours reaches. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You rock slightly with the canoe, listening to the slap of water against the hull. The sails creak gently, stretched taut by a stubborn breeze that smells faintly of salt and something fishy, like tuna having a heated argument. You glance at the man in front of you. He's tattooed from temple to toe, his eyes closed, his lips moving slowly. He's not asleep. He's navigating. See, you're not just out for a paddle. You've committed to the oldest, wildest, slowest form of ocean travel Polynesians, perfected long before satellites started telling us when to turn left. This isn't just history. It's a survival challenge where the ocean plays dungeon master and you don't even get a character sheet. Polynesian canoes weren't your average backyard paddle boats. They were double-hulled catamarans, some the length of a school bus, carved from breadfruit trees or planked with lashed timbers, sealed with tree sap and prayers. These vessels could hold dozens of people, pigs, chickens, and all the taro you could ever overcook. You sail from island to island, not by chance, but with purpose. Polynesians colonized nearly every speck of land scattered across the world's largest ocean, some 10 million square miles of it, stretching from Hawaii to Easter Island to New Zealand. And they did it without compasses, sextants, or GPS-induced bickering. The reality check? You probably wouldn't survive this trip. Most modern folks can't even get through an IKEA assembly without losing a screw, let alone cross thousands of miles with no map and just some birds, a song, and a solid hunch. Historians still argue whether these voyages were methodically planned migrations or if people just kind of got lost and rolled with it. Either way, somebody made it, and then they did it again. And again, and again. You shift on the wooden deck, feeling every splinter, every dip in the wave. The swells push the canoe rhythmically, not unlike a rocking cradle, except this cradle comes with jellyfish, sunburns, and existential dread. You imagine yourself centuries ago, watching as your home island shrinks behind you, trusting that what lies ahead is land. Not just more water and eventual dehydration. You rely on knowledge that's been memorized, recited, sung, and carved into your very bones. It's not written down. It lives in chants, in shared stories, in star maps drawn inside someone's head. There's no plan B, there's only forward. Fun fact, the Lapaita people, Polynesians' Austronesian-speaking ancestors, started this watery crawl around 1500 BCE, bouncing from island to island like amphibious breadcrumbs. They carried pigs, pottery, and obsidian tools. We don't know why exactly. Maybe they were bored. Maybe it was divine instruction. Or maybe they just wanted better beaches. Archaeologists still bicker about the exact motivations. But here's your quirky bit. Those ancient seafarers probably navigated first with driftwood. No, not using it. Following it. Floating debris and seaweed patterns told them which direction islands might lie. It's like deciding where to eat based on how good the trash smells. You listen to the navigator again. His chant has changed rhythm. He's marking something, a shift in the wind, a gut feeling. Or maybe he's realized you're drifting 2 degrees off course and are about to discover the least romantic part of the Pacific. You glance at the horizon. Still nothing but ocean. Still no Instagram signal. Time slows. It has to. There's nothing else here. Every sense becomes tuned to micro details. The breeze tickling your ear, the angle of light on the water, the flutter of a bird's wing. Polynesian wayfinders paid attention to everything. The sea wasn't empty, it was packed with clues. You try to stay awake because you're definitely expected to do something helpful if, say, a wave the size of your house shows up. But there's also something deeply, weirdly soothing about this endless ocean highway. The canoe creaks, a bird cries. Somewhere your feet have gone numb and your back's inventing new ways to ache. Still, you feel oddly safe. Not because there's a safety net, but because the system, this wayfinding, this floating ecosystem of knowledge, is old. It works. It's worked for thousands of years. This canoe is part boat, part story, part survival machine. And somewhere out there across the water is land. You'll smell it before you see it. You'll feel the sea shift, the birds change, the clouds pile differently. But that's for later. For now, you float. The stars are coming out. You start to count them as if that might help. It won't, but it's something to do. Besides, soon enough, you'll learn they're more than just pretty lights. They're highway signs, but for now, let the canoe rock you and listen to the navigator's chant. He knows where you're going. Maybe. You wake to a thump on the side of the canoe. A soft, wet slap that startles your heart rate back into something resembling usefulness. You sit up, rub your eyes, and blink at the vast gray-blue shimmer all around you. Still ocean. Still no island. But now, birds. At first it's just one. Dark, sharp-winged, slicing through the morning sky like it's late for something. Then two more. Then six. You squint and realize they're not circling you. They're commuting. The birds know where they're going, and if you're lucky, you'll figure out how to follow them without becoming a tragic footnote in a dusty ethnography. See, Polynesian navigators didn't just rely on stars and waves. They watched birds like they were feathered prophets. Species like the frigate bird or naughty tern never stray far from land, so spotting one in flight, especially at certain times of day, was a blinking neon sign reading, "Island this way." You try to mimic the navigator. He watches the birds without moving, not staring, but listening with his whole body. He notices their flight angle, their return time, how high they soar. Morning birds flying out low across the water, probably heading off for breakfast. Evening birds returning high and fast, probably beelining back to their cozy nests on dry land. Mainstream fact time. In many recorded voyages, expert navigators use the amaquah, spirit animals in bird form, as guides. These weren't just poetic metaphors. Birds were literal tools for wayfinding, as essential as oars or sailcloth. One trained navigator would even release his own tamed frigate bird, wait for it to circle, and then note the direction it darted toward land. Sort of like launching your own little eco-friendly drone, except it poops sometimes. The trick, of course, is knowing which bird is useful. Not all birds are land indicators. Some, like the albatross, can travel thousands of miles and couldn't care less about your thirst or sunburn. Trust an albatross, and you'll end up serenading sea turtles for eternity. You hear the navigator mutter something under his breath. It's a name, maybe, or a warning, or a reminder to himself not to snack on the emergency taro. Either way, you know he's reading the signs, not just from the sky, but from experience layered like reef stone. Historians still argue whether Polynesians learned to track birds deliberately or stumbled into it, after watching flocks disappear over the horizon too many times. Was it scientific deduction or divine coincidence? Did they chart these behaviors over generations, or just figure it out once and teach their kids never to question the birds again? You watch one particular naughty tern zip past your canoe, low and straight like an arrow. The navigator gives a single nod. You're supposed to notice that, apparently. It means you're getting close. But close in Pacific Ocean terms could still be, oh, another 80 miles. Great. Now here's a quirky tidbit. In some traditions, bird flight patterns were woven into chants. Yes, literal songs about when seabirds feed, where they fly, and how they act at certain moon phases. One verse might describe a bird's arc at sunset. Another might mimic its cry. Picture yourself at sea, exhausted, sun-baked, singing a song about seabirds to stay on course while desperately hoping the bird wasn't just out for exercise. You lie back again and let the clouds drift across your vision. The canoe rocks gently. The birds become dots, then blurs. Your mind wanders, slipping sideways into dream logic. Maybe you're the bird now. Maybe you're circling some tiny green island, yelling at your cousin to bring more fish. And then suddenly, something shifts. The navigator straightens. His face is unreadable, but he's focused. He motions just once and adjusts the sail. You follow the nod. The birds are changing pattern. Lower now, more urgent. There's a new smell in the air. Damp vegetation, a hint of smoke maybe. Maybe. You lean over the edge of the canoe, watching the waves ripple in hypnotic rhythm. There's something beautiful in how calm it all is. Like the ocean itself wants you to succeed, just not without testing you a little first. Kind of like an ancient grandma who gives you cookies but also quizzes you on every mistake you've ever made. Another bird swoops by, lets out a sharp call, and you swear it's laughing. You're not even mad. If you were a bird, you'd mock confused humans too. You begin to hum one of the songs you've heard the navigator murmur. It doesn't mean much to you yet, but you catch snippets about the curve of wings, the cry that returns, and the shadow on the swell. It's less a melody than a floating memory. A mnemonic that's helped people cross deadly stretches of sea for centuries. You wonder how many lives these birds have quietly saved. How many voyages were corrected at the last minute because someone trusted the wing pattern of a frigate bird over their own gut instinct. You wonder how many didn't, and how long it took for someone else to find the empty canoe, drifting silent and aimless, full of unanswered questions and half-eaten coconuts. Your own canoe rocks slightly as the wind picks up. The navigator ties something to the mast, a small carved figure of a bird. You didn't see it before. It's old, smooth from years of salt and handling. It stares out ahead like it's watching for land, or daring the ocean to mess with you again. As night begins to fall, the birds start to vanish from the sky one by one, zipping back toward home. And now you understand what that means. You follow them. Not directly, but at an angle. The navigator shifts your course by just a few degrees. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's everything. You stare at the last few flapping shadows heading into the horizon. There's land out there. You can feel it now. You just have to trust the birds. After all, they don't have bills to pay, but they do know the way home. You hum without thinking, low and slow, the way your navigator does sometimes when he's not shouting at sails or watching birds like they owe him money. The sound barely rises above the hiss of water sliding along the hull, but it feels important. Like a secret you're repeating just loud enough for the ocean to hear. Turns out you're not improvising. You're practicing a skill as old as the canoe you're floating in. Songs, real songs, were once the steering wheels of entire voyages. Polynesian wayfinding didn't rely solely on visual markers. It leaned just as heavily on memory, and nothing sticks in a memory like a catchy tune. Your navigator, for instance, doesn't just know the path to the next island, he sings it. And now, so do you. Each verse contains encoded information. Wave patterns, star positions, even the best time to hunt fish with the least amount of embarrassment. It's a full-on travel guide wrapped in melody and rhythm. You thought sea shanties were just for fun. In Polynesia, they were life-or-death playlists. You glance at the navigator again. His eyes are closed, lips moving. He's reciting the voyage, not from a map, but from within. The song's beat matches the canoe's rocking. The pitch rises and falls like the waves. This isn't karaoke. This is survival. Mainstream historians agree that Polynesian navigators used purakau, narrative chants passed down orally, to retain vast geographic memory. Imagine remembering the locations of 100 islands by heart, just by singing a 30-minute ballad. No Spotify needed, just repetition, rhythm, and a brain that probably runs circles around yours. But here's where it gets wonderfully strange. Some of these songs weren't just mnemonic. They were considered alive. The act of singing them activated the route. as if the ocean, like a moody algorithm, only responded when you hit the right vocal frequency. Sort of like unlocking a treasure chest by humming the exact tune your grandma told you while baking. You hum again, trying to mimic the navigator's chant. You butcher it. He raises an eyebrow but doesn't correct you. Maybe he's impressed you're trying, or maybe he's quietly planning to throw you overboard at the next reef. Historians still argue whether these chants were composed spontaneously by navigators or rigidly passed down unchanged. Some think each voyage added new verses like digital updates. Others insist the songs were ancient, sacred, and tampering with the lyrics meant inviting divine confusion, aka very wet, very lost afternoons. Either way, they were deeply personal. Some navigators even encoded rivalries or love stories into their chants, turning navigation into something poetic. Imagine guiding a canoe by reciting your ex's most annoying habits in verse. Past the reef where she threw my spear, southward flows regret and beer. Your quirky tidbit? There are reports of navigators who could replicate the sound of different wave types and embed those rhythms into chants, essentially beatboxing the ocean. A swell from the northeast might get a dum-dum-da in the chorus. A cross-current? Shift to a syncopated tap-tap swoosh. The canoe becomes a floating drum kit of memory cues. You start to hear it differently now. The creak of wood, the whistle of wind, the slap of water. All part of the background music, each sound anchoring you to the moment and to the route you hope is real. You wonder how many verses it takes to cross 500 miles of ocean. You wonder how many your navigator knows. Hundreds? Thousands? All without writing a single thing down. As night descends, stars begin to blink awake. The chant continues, barely above a whisper now, listing constellations like landmarks on a road trip. After the shark-toothed star comes the hook, then the turtle, then the spear. It sounds like a bedtime story. It is a bedtime story, except falling asleep during it might earn you a one-way trip into Neptune's personal garbage disposal. The navigator pauses mid-line listening. Not to the stars, not to you, but to the waves. You follow his gaze. The water's changed, slightly rougher, a deeper pitch in the crests. He nods and sings a new line, one that matches this new rhythm. The chant isn't just descriptive, it's reactive. It bends to the moment, anchoring your senses to what's happening around you. This isn't a song you sing at the ocean. It's a duet. You're harmonizing with a force that could flip you without apology. No pressure. You start to hum again. This time, it's not a total train wreck. You're mimicking the crest timing, the way the canoe rises and falls. You're not navigating, not really, but you're riding the same current of memory. And that counts for something. It's weirdly comforting, singing into the night like this. You're cold, you're hungry. But the chant keeps you oriented, literally and mentally. It pushes back against the fear of the void. Every verse is a step closer to somewhere. It's how you know the world isn't just water and failure. There's land ahead. You've sung yourself there. The navigator finally stops. Silence washes over the canoe like a warm cloth. The wind hums the next verse for you. You close your eyes and let the chant echo in your head. Somewhere in the darkness, another navigator on another canoe might be singing the same song right now, using the same stars, trusting the same melody to steer his people home. Maybe you'll cross paths. Maybe you won't. But your voices rhyme. The stars shimmer above you like a broken mosaic, silver shards scattered across a velvet sky. Your neck aches from staring up too long, but there's something magnetic about the way they move. Well, you're moving, technically, but they seem to wheel and pivot around you, slow and precise like dancers who never miss a beat. Your navigator finally speaks, his voice low and gravel smooth. He doesn't point, he just names. One by one, he recites stars like they're family. Not the bright, flashy ones everyone knows, but the subtle ones. The background singers, the old reliables. You follow his gaze to a cluster hanging just above the horizon. The navigator calls them Te Kiva in his tongue, a guiding group that always rises when it's time to change course. Not the flashiest celestial celebrities, but in this part of the ocean, invaluable. Mainstream historians confirm this. Polynesian navigators were among the most sophisticated celestial travelers in human history. Long before telescopes or sextants, they memorized hundreds of stars and their seasonal movements. They knew when each star rose and set, which island chains they pointed to, and even the way starlight bent at certain angles depending on latitude. You've probably used GPS to find a taco place 3 blocks away. Polynesians used a mental star map to find specks of land across thousands of miles of moving water. Makes your smartphone feel a bit underachieving, doesn't it? But here's the thing. Those stars weren't seen the way you see them. For you, they're beautiful lights in the sky. For your navigator, they're coordinates, anchors, stories. Each one is part of a family, a lineage, a sequence of direction. Miss one and you're not just off course, you're floating into oblivion. You squint up at a group your navigator seems particularly focused on. They form a narrow wedge pointing downward like a cosmic arrow. That's Ikaika, he murmurs, barely loud enough to hear. It means strength, he says, and in some traditions, it guards the approach to high islands. You immediately like that star. Seems dependable. Probably the type who shows up on time and brings snacks. The navigator reaches for a small bundle wrapped in tapa cloth. Inside is a tightly woven mat with patterned ridges. You recognize it now. A star compass. Except it isn't really a thing. Not like a map you unroll or an app you tap. It's a tool for the mind, how each wedge of the mat corresponds to a rising or setting point on the horizon. The entire ocean is carved up into mental zones, based on where stars appear and disappear. You don't memorize it by reading, it's internalized through years of training. You live it until the stars become reflex. Historians still argue whether this system, called the sidereal compass, was completely standardized across all Polynesian cultures, or if each island group developed its own version. Some researchers claim the compass was universally shared, while others think it evolved like dialects, familiar enough to recognize, different enough to confuse the wrong sailor at the wrong time. You tilt your head, trying to track a star from east to west. It looks slower than you'd expect. The Earth spins, the stars drift, but the navigator makes it look like they glide. He adjusts the canoe again, ever so slightly. Not enough to notice unless you're watching closely, which you are now, because you're starting to realize how easy it is to drift off course if you blink at the wrong time. Here's your quirky tidbit. In some oral traditions, navigators would teach the star paths using body parts. They'd stretch out their arms, point with fingers, use knuckles and elbows to demonstrate angular distance between stars. Imagine navigating the Pacific using your cousin's left shoulder as a compass rose. Sail until the shark star hits my wrist bone, then turn toward Grandma's hip. The canoe rocks gently beneath you as you try to mimic the system. You squint, stretch your arm, and aim your pinky at a star near the horizon. The angle isn't quite right. The navigator stifles a grin. You're learning, but you're not graduating anytime soon. You begin to see how everything ties together. The birds that led you here, the chants that carry the past, and now the stars that write the sky's own map. It's a whole system, dense and graceful, designed by people who had nothing but the world around them and an urgent need not to die at sea. The stars shift again. A subtle realignment. The navigator's expression changes, almost imperceptibly. He hums a short phrase. You recognize it. It's the verse that follows to Kiva. A new leg of the journey begins. He adjusts the sail with practiced hands, changing the canoe's angle just a hair, but that hair spans miles. Now let's talk about the sleeping part, because yes, navigators did sleep, but they did it in intervals like napping sharks. There were always backups, apprentice navigators who memorized the same star paths and could take over if needed. It wasn't a solo job. It was a relay. A choir of memory passed down with obsessive precision. You feel your own eyelids dip, heavy with starlight and sea breeze. You wonder how they did it. Those ancient travelers humming into the void, reading a sky that never repeats itself quite the same way. You imagine a young navigator centuries ago staring up in fear and wonder, whispering the names of constellations like prayers. And maybe, just maybe, you whisper them too now. Not out of superstition, but because it's all you have to hold on to. You wake to a sound that doesn't quite belong. Not wind, not waves, but a rhythmic splash, distant and steady, like someone slapping the ocean with paddles the size of dinner plates. You blink into the pre-dawn haze, rubbing your eyes with fingers still crusted in salt. There, just past the horizon's edge, you spot a smudge. Dark, moving, purposeful. The navigator is already alert. He squints toward the shape. Doesn't speak, just grins. You know now that means something important is happening. You also know better than to ask right away. He'll tell you when he feels like it. Eventually he murmurs, "Dolphins." Ha, not whales, not sharks. Dolphins. But he says it with the same reverence someone might reserve for guardian angels or backstage passes to a sold-out concert. You learn something new. Polynesian navigators paid close attention to the movements of sea creatures, especially dolphins. These weren't just curious animals, they were clues, messengers, sometimes even escorts. Mainstream historical accounts confirm that Polynesian voyagers observed marine life patterns to assist in open ocean navigation. Dolphins, in particular, tend to swim along predictable currents. Some even seem to follow routes between islands, perhaps hunting or migrating, but always in ways that navigators could interpret. Your navigator watches them now, eyes narrowed. They swim west, he says. That means land. Soon. The idea that dolphins can hint at land nearby might sound like something off a fantasy Netflix pitch deck, but it's got precedent. Dolphins often feed where currents meet land masses, especially where underwater shelves rise and bring nutrients close to the surface. Where there's a buffet, dolphins gather, and where dolphins gather, Polynesians took notes. The dolphins breach in unison, then disappear. The navigator whistles softly, a high-pitched melody like a bird call. You don't know if he expects a response. Maybe it's a greeting, maybe it's a superstition, but either way, you're starting to believe it works. Here's your quirky tidbit. Some navigators swore that certain dolphin pods were ancestral spirits, guiding canoes through the unknown. The idea wasn't metaphorical, it was taken quite literally. A pod that appears on a clouded day? That's Grandpa Lonnie, back from the afterlife, still nagging you to hold the tiller straight. Some chants even feature dolphins as part of the route description. Where the long wave breaks and the gray fish leaps, there lies the path to the rising breadfruit. You start to realize these weren't just poetic flourishes, they were maps in disguise. You can't hang a chart on the wall out here, so you hang it in your head, dressed up in rhyme and melody. The navigator begins to hum again. Not the navigation chant from before, but something lighter, almost playful. A dolphin song, maybe. A tune for the ones who slip through the water with an ease you envy. Historians still argue whether the attention to animal behavior was systematic or anecdotal. Was it science, or was it lore? Some say navigators kept detailed knowledge of seasonal fish migrations and bird nesting cycles. Others believe it was more intuitive, a kind of deep-sea muscle memory passed down informally. Either way, when your life depends on the tiniest signals, you learn to read everything. You peer over the side, hoping to glimpse another tail flick or dorsal fin. Nothing for now. Just that impossibly blue water, flickering with hints of silver beneath the surface. Then you see something else. Tiny floating flecks. Seeds? Twigs? Something organic. You reach down and pluck one out. It's smooth, woody, and definitely not from anywhere here. Your navigator plucks one too, holds it to his nose, then tosses it away. From the east, he says, We pass close to another island. It's called drift detection. Polynesian navigators often looked for floating debris, seeds, coconuts, branches, even clusters of seaweed, as hints of nearby land. These weren't just flotsam, they were breadcrumbs. Imagine stumbling across a leaf in the middle of the Pacific. Now, imagine knowing which island it came from, just by its shape and scent. That's not a party trick, that's wizardry. You realize the ocean isn't empty. It's full of signs. It's a dense, humming network of clues, if only you have the eyes to see them. And the time to remember what they mean. The swell changes slightly again. Not bigger, just different. The navigator tilts his head like a dog hearing something you can't. Then he nods. He knows where you are now. You're still hours from land, maybe more. But he knows the current. He knows the sky. He knows the way the dolphins swam and the story the leaves whispered and the exact taste of the wind this morning. And you? You're starting to believe the sea talks to him. You lie back, arms behind your head, letting the boat carry you forward while the hum of the chant and the sound of the waves melt into one another. Everything's wet, everything's sore, but it's also kind of perfect, in a you might die here kind of way. The navigator starts pointing again. Not at dolphins now, but at birds. Gulls, boobies, frigates. Familiar shapes skimming the horizon. You remember what he said before. Birds don't fly at random. They follow currents, find fish, return to roost. Some species don't even sleep on land. They just nap mid-air the way you wish you could. Yet some always return to shore at night, and that means land. That means home. You ask, how many birds do you watch? He shrugs. All of them. Fair enough. You'll sleep again soon. But not yet, because the sky is changing. The clouds look taller. The air smells faintly of wet bark and moss. That's land air. That's not the scent of open sea. You think you see it now, a faint rise in the distance, just where the dolphins vanished. But the navigator isn't looking at it. He's watching the birds, still singing, still steering, still listening to the ocean as if it's got one more verse left to share. The morning sun edges up over the horizon like a sleepy eye peeling open, casting a soft gold glow that makes the water sparkle like someone tossed a handful of diamonds into the sea. You shield your eyes, squinting against the glare, and suddenly, there it is. A shadow, a silhouette. Land. Not just a rumor in the wind, but solid, real earth, etched against the sky. The navigator lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. His shoulders relax, but his gaze sharpens. You're close now. Closer than you thought. You can feel the salt air thickening mixed with something new. The scent of damp earth, coconut, and flowering trees. This moment, spotting land after days or weeks at sea, is the climax of a journey every Polynesian voyager knows intimately. It's the reward for reading stars, singing chants, watching birds and dolphins, and learning to feel the ocean's hidden rhythms. You lean forward, desperate to see more, but the navigator shakes his head. No rush, he says. Still a few miles. We approach carefully. You want to ask why, but he's already pulling the canoe in closer, adjusting the sail to catch the slightest breeze. He points to the water. You peer over the side and notice a subtle change. The color shifts from deep blue to a lighter turquoise. It's shallower here. Coral reef, maybe. Dangerous if you don't know where to steer. This is where Polynesian navigators truly shine. The reefs, those sprawling underwater gardens of jagged coral and curious fish, can be both a boon and a threat. They mark where islands begin, but they can shred a canoe faster than you can say, oops. So navigating this last stretch requires a special skill. Reading the water itself. The surface reveals secrets. A white line means a breaking wave over a reef. A calm patch hints at a lagoon's entrance. A shadow might be a submerged rock. The navigator's eyes scan constantly, interpreting the subtle cues. You try to mimic, but It's like trying to read tea leaves in a hurricane. Historians agree the reef approaches were some of the most perilous parts of Polynesian voyaging. Even the best navigators lost canoes here. It's where knowledge met risk head-on. And yet, these routes were sailed repeatedly, generation after generation. Here's your quirky tidbit. Some navigators use small pieces of coral or shell as sound markers. They'd tap them together underwater to listen for echoes, sensing how deep or shallow the water was beneath the hull. Primitive sonar, long before gadgets made it cool. You notice birds circling closer now, their calls louder, more frantic. The navigator smiles. "Land birds," he says. "They know where to land, they show us." The birds are your final guides. Some, like the white tern, can fly over open ocean for weeks but never stray far from shore. Others, like the frigate bird, soar high, scanning the horizon for fish or signs of land. You spot a dozen or so darting and swooping, pointing the way like little feathered traffic cops. It feels almost too easy. You want to say, why didn't we just follow the birds from the start? But of course, the ocean is a puzzle where every piece matters. The reef comes into sharper focus. It's a jagged line of white foam and turquoise shadows, a natural fortress. The navigator doesn't rush. He waits, listens, watches the wind. He hums softly, a low chant that matches the rhythm of the waves breaking on the reef. You remember the chant from before, the one that feels like a conversation with the ocean itself. It changes now almost imperceptibly, shifting tones to suit this new chapter of the voyage. It's the language of approach and arrival. Historians still debate exactly how detailed the reef navigation techniques were. Some say the canoes had scouts swim ahead, tapping coral and listening for echoes. Others argue the navigators used environmental cues alone. Maybe both methods were true, depending on conditions. You're struck by the patience it demands. The ocean can't be bullied or tricked here. You respect the slow, deliberate approach. You can't help but think how different this is from your usual hustle, where everything's fast, immediate, and swiped left or right. Now your muscles ache, your skin is crusted with salt, and you haven't slept properly since who knows when. Yet this final stretch, this approach to land, feels sacred. You realize how much trust you've put in your navigator and the ocean itself. You're about to touch land, the end of the great open water puzzle. But before that, there's one last lesson. The navigator points again, this time at a large bird perched on a distant branch. It's a kakoo, a native bird said to sing only near safe landing spots. The legend goes that if you hear its call, you've arrived in the right place. You lean in, straining to hear, but the jungle's noise swallows it whole. You smile anyway, because soon you'll be there. Soon you'll be ashore, and the ocean's long song will fade into a whisper. You step off the canoe onto the warm sand with a quiet thud, the grains slipping between your toes like tiny whispers of the ocean's story. The air here is thick with scents, blooming hibiscus, salt-soaked leaves, and that unmistakable richness of earth finally touched by human feet. The land greets you with an almost tangible embrace. The navigator sets the sail down, stretches, and wipes his brow. You follow his gaze inland. Lush green palms sway gently, and you spot a faint trail winding through the underbrush. It's not just a path, it's a memory etched in the landscape, worn smooth by generations of footsteps. You realize that your journey, while physically ending, is only the start of a new chapter. One steeped in tradition, knowledge, and connection to the land. Mainstream historians note that Polynesian voyagers didn't just navigate the seas. They colonized islands, transforming isolated specks of land into thriving communities. Their success was not only in finding land, but in understanding how to live with it, adapting agricultural techniques, building homes that could withstand tropical storms, and creating social systems that balanced resources and responsibilities. But there's a quirky twist. Some islanders believe the land itself remembers the voyages. Trees might grow in patterns that trace ancient canoe routes. Certain rocks are said to mark the spots where the first navigators stepped ashore. These aren't just stories, they're maps encoded in nature itself, passed down in myths and songs. Your navigator leads you along the trail, humming softly. It's a different kind of chant now, a welcome song, a greeting to the island's spirits and ancestors. You feel the weight of it, the connection that binds sea and shore past and present. Historians still argue whether these chants were purely spiritual or served practical purposes, such as marking boundaries, recording genealogies, or encoding navigation knowledge. Whatever the case, their power to tie people to place is undeniable. You pause to pick up a smooth shell lying half buried in the sand. It feels like a token of the journey, something to carry with you, a reminder that every step ashore is a continuation of the voyage. The navigator points to a cluster of breadfruit trees nearby, their branches heavy with fruit. Breadfruit was a vital staple, a reliable food source that sustained island populations through lean times. You remember hearing that Polynesians had sophisticated agricultural knowledge, selecting and cultivating plants that could thrive in diverse island environments. There's a playful debate among scholars about how much of this agriculture was intentional and how much was accidental. Did they bring seeds as part of a planned colonization? Or did some plants hitch rides and take root without much human help? Either way, the results were remarkable. Self-sustaining island cultures that thrived in isolation. You watch as a small lizard darts across a leaf, and for a moment, you think about the countless species introduced by voyagers, plants, animals, even insects, that reshaped island ecosystems. It's an unintended legacy, with both blessings and challenges. Your navigator kneels by a cluster of stones, arranging them carefully. It's a small altar, perhaps a way to honor the ocean that carried you, the land that received you, and the ancestors who made this journey possible. You feel a profound sense of continuity, how each voyage, each landing, each story is a thread in a vast tapestry. The sun climbs higher, warming your back and drying the salt on your skin. You realize how little you understood before about this connection between sea, sky, and land. It's a triad of life, of memory, of survival. You lean back against a palm and close your eyes, letting the sounds of the island wash over you. The distant call of a bird, the rustle of leaves, the gentle whisper of the ocean beyond the reef. And you think, maybe this is what home means. Not just a place, but a story carried on the wind, sung by the stars and etched into the waves. The island feels alive beneath your feet, the sand still warm from the sun, the leaves rustling with a secret energy that hums just beyond hearing. You follow your navigator along the trail, weaving between palms and towering banyan trees whose roots twist like ancient serpents into the earth. The jungle air is thick with humidity and the sweet scent of blooming guava. You notice how every step seems purposeful. This isn't a random stroll, it's a deliberate exploration of a new world, a land that's both strange and familiar, waiting to be understood. The navigator pauses, gesturing to a patch of ground where the soil is soft and rich. Taro, he says quietly. Staple food. You kneel to touch the dark earth, imagining the centuries of hands that have tended this root crop, planting it in carefully dug pits and flooded terraces. Taro wasn't just food, it was life itself, nourishing entire island communities and connecting people to the cycles of the land and water. You think back to the early days of the voyage, the stars, the chants, the dolphins. Now, here you witness the other side of the Polynesian story, settlement and survival. It's not just about finding land, but making it home. Historians have long debated exactly how Polynesians transformed these islands. Some argue that they arrived with a full toolkit of agricultural knowledge, while others believe much was learned through trial and error after arrival. Either way, the islands were altered forever, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Here's a quirky bit. Polynesians brought chickens on their voyages, not just for food, but possibly for companionship or ritual purposes. You can still find descendants of these ancient birds on remote islands, living wild and free, squawking reminders of those early days at sea. You watch a chicken scratch at the undergrowth nearby, feathers glinting in the dappled sunlight. It seems oddly out of place, a small piece of a human story embedded in this wild landscape. The navigator moves toward a small clearing where the remains of an ancient stone structure peek through vines. It looks like the skeleton of a long-forgotten temple or meeting place, an ahu perhaps. Ahu were central to many Polynesian societies, serving as ceremonial platforms, markers of sacred space, or memorials to ancestors. Standing here, you can almost feel the presence of those who once gathered, sang, and celebrated beneath the open sky. You listen as the navigator softly hums again, a chant not of navigation, but of remembrance. It's a quiet melody that honors the land's memory, the echoes of generations past. Historians still argue about the exact roles of Ahu and how they connected to navigation and settlement. Were they purely spiritual sites, or did they also function as territorial markers or waypoints for voyagers? The debate continues, but their cultural importance is undeniable. You wander among the stones, careful not to disturb them, feeling humbled by the weight of history beneath your fingertips. The forest around you buzzes with life, chirping insects, fluttering birds, and the distant roar of waves against the reef. The ocean's song is never far, a constant reminder of the journey that brought you here. You glance at your navigator, who is watching the canopy with a serene smile. He points to a bird perched high above, a tiny puyo, an owl native to these islands. Local lore holds that the puyo is a guardian spirit, watching over travelers and the living alike. You feel a calm wash over you, a sense of protection and belonging that seems to flow from this land, these trees, these creatures. As the sun shifts, casting long shadows through the foliage, you sit down on a moss-covered rock and breathe deeply. This place is more than just an endpoint. It's a beginning, a living chapter in a story that stretches back across oceans and time. And in that moment, you know that the sea's mysteries and the land's secrets are intertwined, held together by song, by memory, and by the steady beat of human heartbeats walking between them. The day stretches lazily into afternoon as you settle deeper into the rhythm of island life. The ocean's steady murmur never far from your ears. You wander along the shore, watching the surf curl and crash in slow-motion curls of white foam, feeling the grit of volcanic sand underfoot. The heat settles into your skin like a familiar blanket, and the salty breeze carries stories you almost can't catch but want to chase. Your navigator gestures to a small pile of driftwood, roughly stacked, not quite a fire pit but close. "Cooking place," he says, then grins. Though some islands use earth ovens. Called imu. You imagine ancient feasts, smoke curling into the sky, the aroma of roasted breadfruit, taro, and fish mingling with the ocean air. Food wasn't just survival, it was celebration, culture, community. Polynesian earth ovens, or imu, are marvels of simple engineering. Heated stones buried under layers of leaves and earth, cooking food slowly for hours. This technique allowed islanders to prepare large meals without modern tools, turning tough roots into tender, flavorful sustenance. There's a quirky side to this cooking method. Some islands added coconut husks to the fire to produce a sweet, smoky flavor, kind of like the Pacific's version of barbecue sauce. You might not get a Michelin star, but it sure beats burnt toast. You watch as your navigator picks up a chunk of charcoal and sketches a symbol in the sand. A bird in flight. It's a reminder, he says, of how important birds were for both navigation and sustenance. Some birds were food, others guides, and some spiritual guardians. Historians still debate the extent to which Polynesian voyagers altered island ecosystems by introducing new species, especially birds and plants. Was it careful stewardship or accidental invasion? The truth likely lies somewhere in between, a balance of human intention and nature's resilience. You wander toward the water again, dipping your fingers into a tide pool teeming with tiny crabs and shimmering fish. You marvel at this miniature world, tucked away in the reef's embrace. Life here is vibrant and persistent, a testament to survival in a place that once seemed so remote. Nearby, a cluster of shells catches your eye, smooth, spiral-shaped and glinting in the sunlight. You pick one up, feeling the cool, hard surface. Shells like these weren't just decoration. They were currency, tools, and sacred objects. Polynesians crafted jewelry, instruments, and even weapons from shells, weaving their natural environment into daily life. Your navigator hums again, a soft tune that drifts with the breeze. It's a melody of gratitude, you think, for the gifts of the sea and land. You feel a strange mix of exhaustion and awe. Days ago, you were adrift on endless waves. Now you're standing on solid ground, surrounded by life and history, caught between ocean and earth. You glance up and notice the sky beginning to shift. Clouds gathering with the promise of rain, the scent of dampness thickening the air. The navigator looks toward the horizon, then back to you. "Storm coming," he says simply. You brace yourself. After all this time, you've learned that the ocean always has one last lesson. The sky darkens quickly, turning from soft blues to a bruised gray, heavy with rain that seems to hang just out of reach. The breeze shifts from gentle caress to urgent whisper, rustling leaves and sending small waves shivering across the lagoon. You and your navigator move swiftly, gathering gear, securing the canoe near the shore. The air thickens, charged with electricity, a silent warning from the island itself. Polynesian voyagers knew these moods well. Sudden storms could toss a canoe like a toy, challenging the very skills that had brought them here. Yet, they also revered these tempests as powerful forces. Sometimes messages from gods, sometimes tests of endurance and wisdom. You remember the chants, those low rhythmic songs meant to call the winds or calm the waves? There's a delicate balance between respect and mastery, between yielding to nature and harnessing its power. The rain finally arrives, soft at first, then growing into a relentless downpour. The island's foliage drinks deeply, leaves shimmering as droplets slide down their surfaces. The earth beneath your feet turns to mud, cool and slippery. You find shelter under a broad-leafed tree, its giant fronds arching protectively overhead. The navigator settles beside you, humming a quiet tune that blends with the storm's symphony. The drum of rain, the whistle of wind, the distant rumble of thunder. Mainstream historians note that Polynesian navigators developed an intimate understanding of weather patterns, using cloud shapes, sea color, and bird behavior to anticipate storms. This wasn't guesswork. It was science woven into tradition, passed down through generations. A quirky detail: some islanders believed that certain birds, like the Iwa frigate bird, could sense storms days before they arrived, becoming restless and flying low. Watching these avian weather forecasters was an ancient survival tactic, a natural barometer. Historians still debate whether these natural signs alone were enough to predict weather, or if oral tradition and experience played a bigger role. Regardless, their combined knowledge helped countless voyages survive tempests. You glance around as lightning forks across the sky, illuminating the island in stark white flashes. It feels like the world's heartbeat quickening. The rain pelts down harder now, drumming on leaves and the ground with relentless force. You tuck your knees close, trying to stay warm, but the chill seeps into your bones. Your navigator smiles faintly. "Storms test the spirit," he says, "and teach patience." You nod, recognizing the truth. After weeks at sea, after the endless stretch of horizon and the thrill of discovery, here comes a moment of stillness and reflection. The storm, wild and unyielding, is a reminder that the ocean and island are alive, both friend and challenge, cradle and crucible. As thunder rumbles deeper, your eyes grow heavy. The rain's rhythm becomes a lullaby, a natural cadence that quiets the mind and slows the pulse. You feel the ancient connection more strongly than ever, the pulse of sea, sky, and land, intertwining in a dance as old as time. And somewhere beneath the storm's roar, the navigator's chant continues, a soft thread binding past and present, voyage, and home. When the storm finally passes, it leaves behind a world washed clean, dripping with freshness and possibility. The air smells like a promise, a blend of wet earth, salt, and new beginnings. You stand, stretching limbs stiff from hours of shelter and stillness, feeling the sun's tentative warmth return through the thinning clouds. Your navigator moves toward the water's edge, eyes scanning the horizon with practiced calm. The sea has settled into a gentle sway, the waves now soft whispers rather than roaring crashes. You step into the shallows, feeling the cool water lap around your ankles, each ripple a reminder of the ocean's endless conversation. Historians note that Polynesian navigators understood the importance of timing their voyages carefully, avoiding the worst storm seasons and reading subtle environmental cues to keep safe. Yet, nature always held the final say. One quirky tradition involved reading the smell of the wind. Islanders believed that certain scents, like the sharp aroma of burning wood carried on the breeze, could signal distant fires or changes in weather patterns, clues to the state of far-off lands and seas. You find this charmingly human, like a natural version of modern weather alerts, but more poetic and personal. As you gaze back inland, you notice the island has transformed after the rain. The foliage appears greener, more vibrant, and the paths glisten with moisture. It's as if the land itself is breathing, alive with renewed energy. Your navigator points to a cluster of pandanus trees, their long, spiky leaves dripping with water. Pandanus was another crucial plant, providing leaves for weaving mats, ropes, and sails, as well as edible fruit. Every part of the island had a role, a purpose, a story. You take a moment to appreciate how intertwined everything is: sea and land, people and plants, history and myth. It's a delicate balance maintained through generations of observation and respect. Historians still debate how much Polynesian voyagers relied on oral tradition versus practical observation in managing these ecosystems. The truth likely lies somewhere in the harmony between the two. Your navigator kneels beside a small pool left by the receding tide, tracing patterns in the sand. "Maps," he says simply, "made by waves and currents." You peer closer, seeing how the ocean's movements have carved shapes and paths into the sand, a reminder that navigation isn't only about stars or birds, but about understanding the living sea itself. As the sun climbs higher, you feel the gentle warmth seep back into your skin. The island is waking up again, vibrant and full of life. You sit beside your navigator, the two of you silent for a moment, connected by the shared journey, one that moves beyond time and place. And as the waves lap softly against the shore, you realize this voyage is more than a story. It's a living legacy, a melody sung across oceans, carried in the hearts of those who dared to follow the stars and the birds, guided by song and the ocean's whisper. The afternoon settles into a golden glow, casting long shadows across the sand as you and your navigator begin preparing for the next leg of the journey. The island, lush and fragrant, hums with life. The chirping of insects, the distant call of seabirds, and the rustle of palm fronds stirred by a gentle breeze. You breathe deeply, savoring the moment, the warmth, the quiet hum of existence. Your navigator starts gathering supplies, bunches of pandanus leaves for weaving, bundles of dried fish for provisions, and carefully wrapped bundles of taro and breadfruit. Every item has a purpose, every detail meticulously planned to sustain life at sea. You watch as he crafts a small bundle of leaves, tied tightly with fiber. "Sails need care," he says with a smile. "Wind is friend, but also tricky." Polynesian sailors were master craftsmen, fashioning sails from woven pandanus leaves that could catch the trade winds just right. The sails weren't just functional, they were works of art, flexible yet sturdy, designed to harness nature's breath. There's a fun little fact. Some sailors decorated their sails with symbols representing protection or luck, kind of like ancient tattoos you could hoist into the wind. Whether these markings actually brought good fortune is up for debate. Historians still argue about the role of symbolism versus superstition in Polynesian seafaring. As the sun dips lower, painting the sky in hues of coral and lavender, you feel the pull of the ocean once more. It's as if the sea itself is beckoning, reminding you of the vast expanse still to cross. Your navigator hums a familiar chant, one you recognize now, a song of departure and hope, filled with the promise of new horizons and safe returns. You help him secure the canoe, double-checking ropes and sail bindings. Preparation isn't just about physical readiness, it's a ritual, a mental tuning to the ocean's rhythms. Polynesian navigation was as much about mindset as technique, calm focus, respect for the elements, and an almost spiritual connection to the environment. There's a quirky detail you recall. Some sailors carried small carved figures or talismans, believed to house protective spirits. These objects were not mere superstition, but embodied the intertwined nature of belief and survival. You sit back, watching the horizon darken as twilight deepens. The first stars begin to twinkle, silent guides that have led countless voyagers through the night. Your navigator points up, tracing the familiar patterns: Orion's belt, the Southern Cross, the ever-watchful Pleiades. These constellations aren't just points of light. They're chapters in a cosmic map, stories woven into the night sky. You feel the steady pulse of the journey thrum beneath your skin. The excitement, the uncertainty, and the ancient wisdom carried in every breath and step. And as the evening cools around you, you settle in, ready to once again answer the ocean's call. Night falls fully now, wrapping the island in a velvety darkness punctuated only by the flicker of stars overhead. The air is cooler, scented with salt and damp earth, alive with the chorus of nocturnal creatures, the chirp of crickets, the rustle of geckos darting through leaves, and the distant, mournful call of a nightbird. You sit quietly by the water, the gentle lap of waves mingling with the soft hum of your navigator's chant, threading a calm through the night. This is the realm where Polynesian navigators truly shine. Under the vast canopy of stars, they read the sky like a living map, tracking the movement of constellations and the subtle glow of ocean swells. It's a skill passed down orally, honed through experience and deep observation. You recall that mainstream historians credit the Polynesians with some of the most sophisticated navigation techniques before the age of instruments, using stars, ocean currents, wind patterns, and even the flight paths of birds. Here's a quirky fact. Certain stars were known as guide stars, and were used only when a canoe was traveling in their direction. These stars rose and set at specific points on the horizon, helping to keep a steady course, almost like ancient GPS satellites. Yet historians still debate the exact methods Polynesians used to teach this knowledge. Was it through formal schooling and special navigation schools, or was it passed informally through stories, songs, and hands-on experience? Probably both, with each island adding its own flavor. You look out to the horizon, where the Black Sea meets the sky, imagining the thousands of miles crossed by these voyagers in open canoes, exposed to the elements but guided by a rich tapestry of knowledge. Your navigator hums a low tune, weaving memories of the ocean, the birds, the stars, and the waves into a song that seems to reach back through time. The melody is hypnotic, almost like the ocean's own heartbeat, steady and unyielding. You think about the seabirds, how they weren't just companions but living compasses. Certain birds fly out to sea each morning to feed and return to land at dusk. Following their flight patterns allowed navigators to find islands hidden beyond the horizon. There's a quirky story you remember about birds dropping coconuts into the ocean as a way to mark territory or communicate, though historians still debate whether this was intentional or coincidence. Either way, the relationship between people and birds is a fascinating puzzle. You settle back, feeling the night's cool embrace and the steady rhythm of the ocean. The stars above twinkle like ancient eyes watching over you, and the song continues, a lullaby for voyagers past and future. In this moment, you realize that navigation isn't just about direction. It's about connection to nature, to history, and to the endless, shimmering mystery of the sea. The night deepens, and the ocean's breath grows softer, almost like it's holding its secrets close. You sit beside your navigator, the canoe gently rocking with the waves as a cool breeze brushes against your skin, carrying the faint scent of salt and wet wood. The sky above stretches endlessly, a quilt of stars wrapped in a darkness so complete, it feels like you could reach out and touch the universe itself. Your navigator points toward the sky, whispering names of constellations that seem to glow with an ancient light. These aren't just pretty patterns. They are stories, guides, and a celestial map that have led voyagers across thousands of miles of open water. You remember the chant, a soft, rhythmic song that blends the stars, sea, and wind into a living story. This song isn't just melody, it's a mnemonic device, a tool to remember complex routes and environmental signs. Polynesian navigators use these songs to train their minds, imprinting navigation knowledge in rhythms and verses. Mainstream historians recognize Polynesian navigation as one of the most advanced pre-instrument techniques, blending astronomy, oceanography, and ecology. This knowledge was so sophisticated that modern sailors struggled to match it until recent times. Here's a quirky detail. Some navigators would close their eyes to see the ocean's waves and swells more clearly, feeling the canoe's subtle movements to sense direction and nearby landforms. It's like their bodies became compasses, tuned to the ocean's pulse. Historians still debate how early Polynesians developed these skills. Was it a gradual accumulation of knowledge? Or did a few master navigators pass down secret wisdom through tight oral traditions? The mystery remains part of the allure. You look out over the water, imagining those first brave souls setting out, propelled by nothing but stars, birds, and song. It's both humbling and inspiring. Your navigator's voice softens, the chant fading into the night, replaced by the gentle sound of waves and the occasional call of a distant seabird. You close your eyes, letting the ocean's lullaby wash over you. Somewhere in the distance, the outline of the next island emerges from the darkness. A promise on the horizon, a new chapter waiting to be written. You feel the quiet thrill of anticipation mingled with the comfort of ancient rhythms. The journey is far from over, but for now, you are exactly where you need to be. Between sea and sky, past and future, dream and wakefulness. Dawn breaks gently, spreading pale pinks and soft oranges across the horizon as the island you've been following slowly reveals itself in the early light. The ocean around you shimmers like scattered jewels, calm and inviting after the night's dark embrace. You breathe in the cool morning air, filled with the subtle sense of salt and tropical blooms, and feel a profound sense of arrival, not just at a new land, but at a deeper understanding. Your navigator smiles quietly, his eyes reflecting the rising sun. Home, he says, but you sense it's more than just a place. It's a moment, a connection to everything you've experienced, learned, and carried within you. The island is lush and alive, dense forests, rocky cliffs, and sandy shores beckoning. You notice the delicate patterns carved by wind and water on the beach, the scattered shells telling stories of tides and time. It's a place both ancient and ever-changing, shaped by nature and human hands alike. Polynesian voyagers were among the greatest explorers in human history, traversing vast stretches of the Pacific long before Europeans set sail. Their journeys were feats of courage, skill, and an intimate relationship with the environment that still inspires awe. A quirky tidbit: some islands kept star compasses, mental maps where navigators memorized the rising and setting points of stars to maintain their course. These celestial maps were fluid, shifting with seasons, requiring constant attention and knowledge. Historians still debate exactly how widespread these techniques were, and whether all Polynesian cultures used the same methods or adapted them uniquely to their environment. The nuances make their achievements all the more fascinating. As you step onto the soft sand, you feel the warmth soak into your feet, grounding you after days at sea. The island hums with life, a chorus of birds, rustling leaves, and distant waves. You look back out to the horizon where your journey began and forward to this new land filled with promise and mystery. The ocean's whispers linger in your mind. The songs of birds, the stories of stars, and the steady pulse of waves guiding you home. You close your eyes, letting the gentle breeze carry away any lingering fatigue. The journey has changed you, opened your senses, and deepened your respect for the world's vast, interconnected rhythms. And now, as you stand at the edge of discovery and rest, you carry with you the legacy of the Polynesian navigators, those brilliant, brave souls who taught the world how to read the sea and sky as one. Now the pace slows and the world softens around you. The sun's warm glow dims gently, colors fading into dusky shades that whisper of rest and renewal. You breathe out the day's excitement, letting it drift away like a leaf on a calm stream. The ocean's rhythm pulses quietly in the distance, steady and unhurried, a gentle reminder that time flows as naturally as the tides. You feel a calm settle in your chest, a comforting warmth that spreads like a soft blanket across your shoulders. All the stories and songs, the stars and waves, seem to lull you deeper into a peaceful space where worries dissolve and dreams gather softly on the horizon. Tonight, you carry the quiet strength of those who crossed vast oceans guided only by nature's cues, by birds, stars, wind, and song. Their legacy is a gentle hum beneath the night sky, a melody that echoes in the heart and soothes the mind. Let yourself float here a while longer, suspended between wakefulness and sleep, where history becomes a soft whisper and the ocean's lullaby rocks you gently into rest. Good night, traveler.